game week, and you wouldn't know it if you were in the studio because we got Dylan Cruz and the Washington Nationals taking on my New York Yankees of all teams, sitting right here in the studio. Nevertheless, we're live. We got live eyes on Dylan Cruz here. We also got a game week. LSU football, finally, LSU football is back. And they'll be taking on USC in Las Vegas. We got so many things that you and I got to discuss this week about this game. It's going to be a glorious, glorious week. And on Sunday, the Lord's Day, let's just hope that our Tigers come out with a win here. We're going a little bit over Rufino's rants. Harold Perkins gets number 7. Josh Williams, Greg Penn III get number 18. We'll start off the show talking about that. USC Preview Week. We'll go through 5-6 key points here in reference to what we think about this game. We'll give you our final thoughts on Thursday and how or what you have to do to win, in my God's honest opinion. So we'll go through that preview, look at USC throughout the week. We'll talk about Brian Kelly. He previewed this game today in a press conference. We'll take some key thoughts from him, everything that he is thinking going into game one. It's Monday, so you know at 7:35, Carter Bryant is going to be here to break down this entire game with us. Glad that we finally got it. And at the end of the show here, we'll go around LSU, talk about a little bit of recruiting. Is Aiden Anding, the cornerback out of Ruston, commits. Jonah Williams does go to Texas. If you're in the forum, you knew that. But what do I know? What do I know? Oh, and by the way, if we have time and the game's over, we'll talk a little bit about Dylan Cruz and his debut. Did this have a 5-pitch walk, though? 5-pitch walk for our good man, Dylan Cruz. I'm so excited, man. Jay Johnson is there. Gotta love it, man. Best team of all time. You can't convince me otherwise. Drew Laird, 662, the SIP. I don't like that, Drew. I don't like that. Everybody's sounding off where they're listening to from tonight. The SIP. That's a Lane Kiffin thing, man. I don't like it. But nevertheless, thank you for being here, 662. We greatly appreciate it. Shane Bullock says, hi from the 318. Good to have you in here, my man. Paul Sharp says, let's freaking go. It's game week. That it is. Rob Boudreaux echoes those sentiments, saying, so glad that it's game week. I am with you too. Trust me. It's very lonely around here at times when you don't have a lot of football going on because, I mean, guys, this is how we make our business here. Nobody will tell you, but it is where we make our most monies during football season. David Woodard, 318 up in here. Good to have you in here with us. Big J Cole also in the 318. 3-1 great. He says, watching while mowing the lawn, thought these headphones would save my hearing, but Joe ruined that. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Yeah, 2 Italians yelling. Got to get ready for it. Joseph Buchanan on YouTube says, let's go from the 318. 3-1 great. I'm telling you, man. They have adopted me as their own. They love you, boy, in the 318. You got to love it. Stuart Jones says, watching in the 479, but originally from the 318. Let's effing go, Blake. Good to have you in here with us as well. Our good friend Stephen Fry over at Fry Construction out there in Eunice. It looked like my man was playing some softball this weekend. Sources are telling me that he might have pulled the hamstring. So this isn't good for our good friend Stephen. Not good at all. Stephen, did you really pull a hamstring? We can't have you pulling hamstrings out here, Coach. Cannot happen. He says, bring on the mother bleeping Trojans, Blake. I agree. I'm going to continue to tell you all week, don't sleep on them. Look, the great thing about LSU fans this offseason for football has been you have not discredited this USC team. Now, there have been some of you, oh, their defense stinks. Okay. Well, look, man, I'm not there with you. I think that they bringing in D'Anton Lynn is a big deal. A lot like what you did bringing in Blake Baker. D'Anton Lynn is going to send pressure. Garrett has got to make right and precise decisions, sometimes very, very quickly. USC is going to bring more guys than you have in the block sometimes, and you're going to have to check it down and live with it. And your defense is going to have to make plays too. It's how the game is going to go. You got to go out there and make plays and make right decisions. Right decisions, lean on them, run the football, do what it is that we think that you can do. Keith says that he is in Bayou Lafourche, Louisiana, the 985 representing. Good to have you in here with us as well. Fat Boy Slib says, in my big rig truck, stopping Denham Springs, headed to Bogalusa. Be safe, my man. Be safe. Dylan says the 919, by the way, that 504, Blake. Good to have you in here as well. The official college football chatter YouTube channel. Good to have you in here. Says from the 337, but he's in the 405. Chase V from Oklahoma. Good to have you in here as well. Cooper. What's up, Coop? He says 504, let's go. 504. Representing. Coop, dog in the building. Good to have you in here with us, my good friend. Thank you so much for being here, joining us. We got lots and lots to get to. Mark says 985 Ponchatoula headed to Vegas on Thursday. Well, Mark, have a really, really good time out there. Hope all of you have a very, 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 very good time out in Sin City. You know what they say? Unless LSU comes away with the win, everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Now, that changes once LSU wins on Sunday. But if they don't, everything that happens in Vegas just stays in Vegas. All right, let's get to it. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share all of those groups. If you're on social media, share to all of those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. We'll come back, talk about the number 18s that were delivered, some of my thoughts going into USC. Brian Kelly previews the USC game. Carter Bryant joins us here in just a moment. We got some recruiting, so much and so many topics that we got to hit here tonight. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. Good friend Tyler Alexander over at LPT Realty. Good friends over at JJ Exterminating. So excited. I'm fired up. Football is back, baby. See you on the other side. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
All right, let's get this thing rolling, y'all. Our good buddy Ryan Williams says, got Vegas on the mind, arriving on Thursday. Go Tigers. Congratulations to our good friend Ryan Williams winning a massive court case today. I tell you, man, y'all got to get over to the Drake Williams Law Firm if you need stuff. This man just laid the smacketh down all over the candy asses in the courtroom today. Ryan, congratulations. Glad that you're on our side, buddy. That's all I'm going to tell you. Because, sometimes I could say things that maybe not always I should. All right, let's get to it. I want to go on this very quick rant because this weekend, Brian Kelly announced who was going to be the new number 18s for LSU. You know the legacy behind this with Matt Mogg, Jacob Hester, Brandon Taylor, et cetera, how this jersey passing on of 18 has come about. I don't think that Brian Kelly could have made better decisions with giving the number 18 jersey more to Josh Williams, who's been here since 2019, has seen so many great things like Joe Burrow in this offense and the national championship run, the greatest team in college football history, to the Ed Orgeron years being a fumble, to Brian Kelly coming in, and Josh Williams just really being a staple of your running back room. Josh getting that number solidifies what it means to be a Tiger. I think a lot of us maybe potentially thought that he should have gotten it last year, and I would have not hated that. Josh getting that number this year, I love everything about it. He embodies what a team player is. Last week, it's kind of funny. I mentioned that Josh Williams was the Toyota Tacoma of running backs. He's all reliable. It's very hard. You're going to be very hard-pressed to find somebody that's been around LSU this long than Josh Williams, and at times and in meaningful games has meant more to this program than he has, especially in the Brian Kelly era. What's interesting, Josh Williams has been kind of a bigger player when it comes down to it in the Brian Kelly area when it comes to offense. The big block like he had against Florida, the touchdown that he had against Alabama that would wind up leading you to winning the SEC West in year one under Brian Kelly. So many critical things. The block that he had against Alabama that sprung Jaden Daniels in overtime for a win. He has been one of the best, and quite honestly, guys, one of my favorite players that's ever put on the uniform. Having a very good and close friend that has worn that number in Brandon Taylor, he embodies everything of what it needs to be and what it should be. I hope Josh Williams has a fantastic season. I anticipate him to have a fantastic season. There's nobody better to give it to. I think a lot of people were I don't want to say dumbfounded, but a lot of people were like, oh, Greg Brooks also receiving number 18. Didn't surprise this dude. Not one bit. Because let me tell you something. If you talk to any of those players, if you talk to anybody on that staff, there is nobody on defense who brings more unity than Greg Penn. Have whatever thoughts you want to have about him on the field. That's yours to have, and I'm not going to come at you and tell you that you shouldn't have those thoughts. But I promise you, and just talk to any players that you may know, that Greg Penn III unifies this team more than anybody defensively. It's interesting because Greg Brooks was wearing number 3, and I think that, now that Sage Ryan is getting that number, a lot of guys that love Greg Brooks, who was the staple of what would have been your defense last year. A lot of people wanted to represent and show love to Greg Brooks, But Greg Penn got a massive celebration from his teammates on Saturday when that jersey was delivered. I know that there was a big push for him to get that number from a lot of people on the defensive side of the football. Guys, we don't talk about this ever. Never. Not once. We don't talk about what happens in the locker room. It's not really something that generates views, so nobody talks about it. But every time that you talk to players, every time that you need somebody to be the face of a program, they send in Greg Penn. Now, I do think that Greg's going to play a very integral role in what Blake Baker wants to do, getting signals in, getting in calls. Now, he's going to rotate in on certain packages and situations with guys like Wood Weeks. But anything to make this team better and this team has success, Greg Penn will do. Sacrificed a lot of things, stayed humble, and kept the linebacker room together when you had a staff that was last year that was very demeaning, wouldn't explain themselves greatly, and quite honestly, was not good human beings at times. Greg Penn is what held your defense together. You want to know why he got the jersey? That's why. Because when you didn't have an absolute mass exodus defensively, it's because Greg Penn held them together. Very happy for him. Not the only announcement that LSU would do on Saturday. That is Harold Perkins getting number 7. You know, I saw somebody tweet this, and I forget who put it, and forgive me for not remembering who posted this on social media. But I saw somebody say, and when we, said breaking, Harold Perkins will be wearing number 7 this year. Somebody said, that should have happened and Perkins should have wore number 7 when he burned the A&M hat on his commitment day. I thought that was very funny and also very real. Here's the thing, though. I really hope that Harold Perkins can translate what he's done in this camp at inside linebacker to on the field this upcoming Sunday. If he does, guys, you're going to be so much better defensively. I think that he has, and we've talked about this all fall camp and these practice reports, that he has been somebody that has stepped up his game at that position. I asked Brian Kelly last week about the green dot, and if you don't know what a green dot is, it's the player that has the green dot on the back of their helmet is the player that has the communications in their helmet. And Harold Perkins last week was that guy that had it. And it's very interesting to me that the step that he's made and the faith that they've put in him, you're going to need him. But that number defensively really has been some of and the best playmakers that you produce on defense. I think that he can live up to it. It's going to be up to him if he can, but he has had a very good fall camp. I hope and pray for him that he does. All right. Let's get into a little bit of preview here. I'm still looking at this game here in the studio with Dylan Cruz. Man, so happy for that young man. So happy. Let's break down USC. So obviously you know that LSU and USC will be facing off on Sunday, and we'll talk about Brian Kelly's comments later on in the show. But when I look at USC, I see a team that a year ago that went 8-5 did not have the season that they were hoping for. They thought after playing in the Cotton Bowl the year before, even though they lost to Tulane, they thought going into the Pac-12 that they could have a really good season. Didn't go their way. They lost 4 one-score games last year, and a lot of people wrote off Lincoln Riley. Oh, Lincoln Riley stinks. He's soft. USC stinks. They're soft. Well, a lot like you, that they had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and a lot of really good wide receivers, and their defense did stink. And they fired their entire defensive staff, and they brought in a new one and a guy in DeAnton Lynn. And I'm going to continue to tell you what I've been telling you for so long here. Do not take this team lightly. Lincoln Riley in and of himself is a walking top 10 offense. And what they're going to produce to you and for you, they're going to make you play high discipline football. In the running game, they're going to run counters and sweeps and boots and nakeds. Disguised through an air raid offense that likes to dump the ball off quickly and make you make tackles in space. The biggest misconception about a guy like Lincoln Riley is that they don't run the football effectively, that schematically they're not that good. Are you smoking? Because they will get after your ass if you're not paying attention. I think their offensive line is a lot better than people are giving them credit for. And you better be ready and disciplined defensively, or they're going to put up points against you. You know, there are a couple of things when I look at USC too defensively. I look, hey man, they really got some really good athletes first and second level. Like I look at their defensive line with Anthony Lucas and Barry Alexander and those guys, and thinking to myself, you know what? They actually don't have a bad defensive line at all. You know, I look at Nate Shepard, who was very productive last year in the SEC, coming over from Vandy of all places, coming to USC as well. And how much of an impact player can he be? I look at two linebackers, guys like Gentry and others who are very athletic. And a lot of them made a lot of plays, but schematically they were all over the place. But I don't think on paper at the current moment they're more talented than you are. Actually, I know that they're not more talented than you in certain positions. I don't think they have a better offensive line than you. They do not have a quarterback that is more experienced than Garrett Nussmeier, but is also really good. I don't know if they are going to be as effective at running the football as you can be, but they're definitely going to get after your ass there. One thing that I look at with this USC game, and we'll break this down a lot on Thursday, is when I look at them, I'm very much worried about their wide receiver room against your DBs. Now, I think that your defensive backs have had a really good fall camp, playing in man-to-man coverage, doing some exotic things in zone coverage and zone blitzes, that they've come away with picks on Garrett Nussmeier, that they've been able to do some things in the running game. Because this wide receiver room is not to be trifled with. Zachariah Branch is a really good player. The Lemon Kid is a really good player. Kyron Hudson is a really good player. And you know who he reminds me of? A guy like Jeray Jenkins. Guys, their fourth wide receiver is Jeray Jenkins. And before you scoff at that, Jeray Jenkins in 2022 made a lot of plays here. Remember Ole Miss when he came back to the football for Jaden Daniels and went up the ladder, caught the ball and scored and actually started getting you rolling, moving the football? Yeah, I remember how good Jeray Jenkins was when he caught the pass from Max Johnson in the back of the end zone to beat Texas A&M in Ed Orgeron's last game. Guys like Kyron Hudson had 3 block punts a year ago. Offensively and special teams wise, guys, they're coached at a very elite level. You can make whatever bones, you can talk any kinds of shit that you want to about Lincoln Riley. What you can't do is say that offensively that they're not going to scheme some things up against you and that their wide receiver room is not going to be really good and productive. That room is going to be very productive and very good. You cannot be passive in this game. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed with USC and Miller Moss, whether it be the bowl game or during the entire spring, is kind of some of the same things that we have seen with Garrett Nussmeier at times. If you can get after him and put pressure on him, he's going to make very bad decisions. You have a quarterback that's going to his second start. No, I'm not talking about Garrett Nussmeier. I'm talking about Miller Moss. But he doesn't have the reps and experience that Garrett does. You have to find ways to get after him. But none of that will matter unless you can do one thing that you were very bad in last year. If you cannot be better at tackling in space, Lincoln Riley is going to light you up. He's going to light you up like a Christmas tree on New Year's Eve, and Santa Claus is coming. You know, I think about this week 0 game as an example of what a really good team may look like when they tackle in space and they look really good. Did y'all see the week 0 game, Florida State versus Georgia Tech? You know how Georgia Tech won that football game? It's not that DJU wasn't getting the ball out to his playmakers in space. No, he was. But every time they caught the football, their players would come up and make plays and make tackles. It's a lot about what Lincoln Riley is going to do to you, too. Tackling is a mentality. Tackling is a want to. And if you're not going to be better in that area, you're going to have issues on Sunday. I think that you're actually going to be better there. So, nevertheless. But think about how good Georgia Tech was on Saturday and how good and elite they were at tackling in the open field. Guys, that essentially beat what some people thought going into the season was a really good Florida State team. Now, we'll see what happens with Florida State. It doesn't look good for them right now. A lot of people are poo-pooing on them. But they made tackles in open space on third down and forced Florida State to punt the football, go for it on a critical fourth down that they were unable to get it. That's one thing that you're going to have to do. It is the ultimate thing that you have to do to Lincoln Riley, the offenses. When I look at D'Anton Lynn, I want to prepare you for this because this can cause some issues. Garrett Nussmeier is going to be blitzed a lot on Sunday. D'Anton Lynn, a lot like Blake Baker, is not going to be passive. They are going to send the heat after Garrett. And a couple of things that you have to do to get that heat off of Garrett is, number one, you have to lean on this running game. You have to be physical up front, punch somebody in the mouth, and knock these dudes out. Guys, if I'm LSU and I'm Brian Kelly, I'm coming out and I'm playing a little bit of keep away early in this game, and I am establishing the run to open some things up. Make D'Anton Lynn second guess what he's doing in sending pressure. Hey, man, you can send it all night long, but we're going to line up in 12 personnel, and if you want to blitz and you want to get burned, go right on ahead because we're going to line it up and punch you right in your shit. Guys, you got to go into this game with a whole new, brand new mentality. You know, the last 2 years, I felt like it was a highly anticipated, which this game is highly anticipated too. But I felt like that there was so much worry going on. But you arguably have one of the best overall units in the country along with this offensive line. You got to line up and punch them right in their shit and take some of this early pressure off of Nuss. Give Nuss some early throws and completions. Yes, get a bootleg to Mason Taylor out in the flat. Let him get 10. Run a hitch route to Kyron Lacey. Let him go for 10. 100%. Let's go out there and test this USC defense in that front. I personally think their D-line is better than people are giving them credit for, yes. But I think this offensive line can eat. And you got to run it right at them. Jab, jab, uppercut. Jab, jab, uppercut. I'm sorry if you're around children, but you got to go in there and now, if you didn't hear what I just said, I'm sure they bleeped me. But you got to go in there and anyway, Brian Kelly did say something that was very interesting today too. And we'll get to his comments. And actually, we can get to his comments a little bit now. There are some injuries that are out here for LSU. That being, Chris Hilton has a bone bruise. Kyle Parker, the redshirted freshman, to take his place at X. Here's what I'll tell you. Guys, they're going to rotate a lot of receivers in a lot of different formations. That third wide receiver of who's going to be in rotating here is going to be dictated off of the formation that they're in. Think about it like this. Remember when Sean Payton in 2009 would run like a whole bunch of different sets of receivers out there, and you'd be like, who in the hell is this kid Willie Snead? Right? Like, or who in the hell is this guy Lance Moore? Think about it like that. Now, you know the players on this team, so you wouldn't be thinking stuff like that. But Kyle Parker in. I think it's going to be very – if Chris Hilton doesn't play – Yeah. It's going to be because he's really hurt. I feel confident that Chris is going to do everything he can to play. Something that was interesting today, too, before we get to Carter Bryant, that I want to mention, too, in previewing this game, because we'll talk about this all throughout the week, and we'll give you our keys to victory on Thursday. Brian Kelly gave his game plan away today. I don't know if you heard this, about what they want to do to USC offensively. We're going to try to make them one-dimensional. Now, I don't know specifically what he means there and what he's trying to take away. But all I'm going to say is this. Coaches don't say stuff like that if they don't have a really good game plan of how they want to attack. They do not do that. I would not be shocked if you saw a lot of heat being sent too. So look, if you're offensively, I think you can win up front against USC. But look, man, you got to be utterly cautious about what they have at receiver with your DB room. Prove that you can tackle in space. Last thing here too. Offensively, you will run a lot of the same stuff that you saw or you will see from USC. The three big pillars here too, man, and I mentioned this earlier. If you're not fundamentally sound defensively, guys, you're going to give up 35-plus points. You will. Because Lincoln loves to play mismatches with you. Get the ball out quickly. Take some deep shots. Zachariah Branch might be one of the best wide receivers in the country, too. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Did we have somebody told me we had 2 super chats? Lucas Abears with a $2 super chat says, "Let's go Tigers." Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that, Lucas. And Brian Turner with a $4.99 super chat says, "If I'm a USC fan or even a coach, last thing I want to see is this LSU front seven, especially interior, wakes up. Don't think they can scheme around that." Well, I think that's a very big ask, if I'm being honest. You got to go out. Look, there comes a point. There comes a point here where you got to go out there and prove that, Brian. Right? You got to go out there and prove it. Go out there and prove it. Show that you want it more than they do. All right. Let's get to Carter Bryant. Let's get you a quick break. You know what it is on Mondays, man. Me and Carter are about to discuss this ad nauseum. Game week is finally here. Looking forward to it. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company. Are you facing tough times due to an injury from a car accident, navigating the complexities of divorce, or purchasing a new home? At the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company, they understand the challenges you're going through, and they are here to help. The lawyer team of Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, along with Morgan Daniels, have the experience and proven track record to give you that peace of mind. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. That's 985-386-7600 to schedule a free consultation at their brand new office located in historic downtown Ponchatoula. They're also doing a special, the AYS special. If you're refinancing or closing on a home in Southeast Louisiana, request the Drake Title Company to handle your closing. If you mention Blake Ruffino and AYS, you're going to receive a $400 discount on title fees. Again, give them a call at 985-386-7600. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
Carter, the Power Bryant. Good evening, good sir. It is finally game week here. How are you?
First off, I want to let everyone know I have a weird beard right here because I'm going through a little skin thing. Hopefully, I'll be good enough to still fly to Vegas. I'm allowed to shave everywhere on my face outside of here because I have to put medicine here. So if you see a glistening on here, don't think I just randomly started an OnlyFans. It's because there's actual triple antibiotic cream. Now, Blake, as is always the case, all right, because I do my due diligence and I actually try to cover the other team. You do a good job of it as well. I did a film study on USC, okay, and that led me to being on a USC show, all right, and he started the show. I love him. USC Jay. He's a very entertaining guy, lost in the sauce. Okay. He's just like you. And he immediately got into the 2003 LSU versus USC debate. Okay. Then I was like, all right, we're going to talk about the actual game. So then he decided, okay, to do LSU versus USC wide receiver U. Okay. And I love him. I do. He tried to do it. And I understand if you factor in ancient years and you throw in Lynn Swann and all those guys, USC's got unbelievable history. So he did a debate. You can go see this Twitter clip if you want to. And the third name that came out of his mind, you know what the third USC wide receiver name he listed? He listed Robert Woods. And
Robert Woods wasn't a horrible player.
But we're having an all-time great wide receiver debate. You don't go Robert Woods third overall, especially if you're comparing him to Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, Malik. Is Robert Woods in that conversation if you're doing an all-time wide?
Can I just tell you something?
Go ahead.
All of that, the 2003, the wide receiver U, I'm just going to be real with you. For me, since we haven't won a game one since 2019, I don't give a shit about it. Now, you know what I want? I want you to go out there and punch somebody in the mouth and win the football game is what I want. Screw all this other shit about wide receiver U, all that other stuff. It's time to go out there and punch somebody in the mouth. Now, in the offseason, we can have that debate. Right now,
I thought I was going on to talk about – because, look, I'll start this off, Blake, with saying, as we discussed privately, and we can, like you said, we can always have that top five debate or whatever. I don't really like doing that. I really don't. What I would tell you, though, is Miller Moss, really watching him, was so much better versus Louisville than I thought. Because
that's why I've been saying all offseason, and nobody wanted to listen.
Yeah, so, I heard you say that, and I watched the game, and I was like, okay, this is a really good game. But, when you're actually just watching the game in the background, you're just kind of watching it. You have to really go back and rewatch the game multiple times. And Blake, I counted 4 throws in that game.
Elite.
That were unfreaking believably good.
Yeah.
Okay. Like ridiculous for a guy starting his first game. Like unfreaking believable, tight window, hit him in stride over the overhang linebacker kind of stuff. Like that was absurd. It is so hard to do that in your first start. Now I understand he's a year 4 guy in his first start, Blake, but
so is Garrett.
Yes. And obviously versus Wisconsin.
Well, second start, but both of them going in their second start in year 4.
And it's ridiculous how similar they are, coming in for a Heisman Trophy quarterback, year 4 guys, top 100 recruits in the 2021 class. If you're a super diehard recruiting guy, I am not, but obviously I follow it. Miller Moss was recruited by LSU and the Orgeron regime. It was later in the cycle, but you can go read plenty of articles on that. this guy can play. He can really, really, really play. And there is a school of thought amongst USC fans that they feel, and they truly do feel, that Miller Moss might be not better than Caleb Williams. Nobody would be stupid enough to say that. But like you've mentioned on here, Blake, and people have slammed you for it, he's going to run the offense the way it's intended. And that's just the big difference. And what I could tell you about that is Lincoln Riley probably prefers that way. Like,
name the guys that played inside his system that have had very good success.
Yeah.
I will remind people, Baker Mayfield was a walk-on. Now, let's start off here with Miller Moss and go there, and then we'll just go down the list of previewing this game here. USC has had a lot of people poo-pooing on them nationally. Lincoln Riley isn't any good. They're soft, yada, yada, yada. You know what he's not bad at doing? He's actually probably the most elite is quarterback play.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when Nick Saban, when Jalen Hurts was transferring, Nick came out and said, hey, listen, you need to go to Oklahoma because Lincoln Riley is the best developer of quarterbacks in the country. I fully believe that. That's the GOAT saying that. That's Nick Saban saying that, right?
Yeah.
They were also, during the portal period, going after now Ohio State quarterback Will Howard in the portal. Well, Miller Moss went out there in the bowl game and shut a lot of people up, including his head coach, and he got to name the starter. Here's the thing that I think about Miller Moss. I think that he is going to your point, he is going to play inside their system more than Caleb Williams ever did. When they lost, meaning USC, what happened? Caleb improvised too much. It was too much about him, the stupid-ass fingernails. But Miller Moss playing inside the system will win them football games. Here's another thing, though. He has a problem with locking onto a read sometimes and turning the football over. He had 2 interceptions in their spring game because he did that. You know who he is? He's a least arm-talented Garrett Nussmeier. He doesn't have the arm strength, but they have a lot of the same attributes, and they're similar to one another.
Very.
And I think that people like I think Miller Moss could have a very decent day. And look, here's the thing, man. Their wide receiver room is not bad. You know, I look at the Lemon kid. I look at Zechariah Branch, their tight end room. Carter, they have playmakers out wide that can present you problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Blake, Mekhi Lemon is pretty good. His numbers weren't good, but when he actually played in the Louisville game, he was really good. Jacoby Lane, 6'4" guy, reminds me a little bit, not as talented, but a younger kind of BTJ type of player. He's a really good jump ball red zone weapon for them. Deuce Robinson, also a former 5-star, who's was labeled as a tight end, mostly been a wide receiver. And then, of course, there's so much gravity to Zachariah Branch because he was, such an elite 5-star recruit. He's very good. He's probably a little bit more dangerous as a returner than he is a receiver at this point in his career, but he's good. So shout out to Ashton Stamps and Christian Stamps. He's going to have his work cut out for him. And I think Ashton will have some good plays. And this would be one thing I would say about Miller Moss is there are times when he tries to throw with so much anticipation that the way he can lock in on someone, you can undercut it. You can undercut it and take it the other way. And I know we are really focused in on Garrett Nussmeier, but Miller Moss's big turnover in that Louisville game was in the red zone. Okay. Right. So then, and the DB cut back. I don't know why he cut back. He could have picked it off and pick six and tied the game. And the way we view Miller Moss now would be a lot different if that was actually house called. Right. And I think, just to use Ashton Stamps, I think he was faster than the DB that actually picked it off and probably would have taken it to the house. So it's interesting. I do think, Blake, one of my bolder predictions in this game is there will be a special teams touchdown in this game at some point or a pick six in this game. I think
that doesn't bode well for you if you're LSU about special teams.
Yeah. And you've been sounding the alarm on this, right?
You ever seen the first Ninja Turtles movie?
Yeah, Master Splinter.
Remember when Michelangelo is hitting people in the head with cymbals? That's what I've been trying to do to the LSU fan base. They were number one in the country last year in block punts. They were number one in the country last year in efficiency rate on punt returns. They were number one in the country last year in punt coverage. Do not play around with them. By the way, Kyron Hudson had 3 block punts last year. 3. By the way, in the bowl game, they blocked one against Louisville. The very next play is an RPO slant to Kyron Hudson for a tutty. Like, look, you can put poo on them all you want to. But the truth is, they do have some playmakers. Now, here's the thing with that. And when you play a high-flying offense, I mean, look, Lincoln's offenses have been top. They're a walking top 10 offense.
Yeah, every year. Yeah.
You got to go on the ground and mess them up. If your O-line is as good as you think and we say that they are, if you're that good, Carter, I'm tired of pussyfooting around with this one. You got to line up 12 personnel and knock some son of a bitch's teeth in the dirt. You got to line up and dick them down. Screw this. Let's open it up. Throw that son bitch all over the place. Hell no. You line up in 12 personnel with your big-time offensive line, and you start clapping cheeks. I'm tired of pussyfooting around about it. If you want to win game 1, you go out there, start patty smacking that ass, and run the ball down the field or run that down their throat. Here's the thing, though. I think that you got to play a little bit of keep away through the first couple of quarters. You got to let the game settle down for this defense. As the legend of week 0, Brent Key said on Saturday, run the ball.
There were 13 possessions in that game.
I don't give 2 Rudy Poos. Run the ball.
All right. I tend to disagree. Do whatever you feel is best offensively.
That's what they're going to do.
But if
you better get ready for it.
If that is what LSU feels they do best, which is mixing in inside zone, outside zone, pulling some you've seen in practice and you've heard as well, getting guys out in space, getting your talented offensive lineman out there, I would love to see it. I really, really, really would. And on top of that, Blake, I do think one area where USC got better was their transfer safeties.
I agree.
That they actually are proven good players. And the thing that kind of scares me about it is one of them transferred in from UCLA. So he knows the systems.
Yep.
He's going to know how to make all the right calls because it is a new system. It is a drastically different system than Grinch. I'm not just saying that because they have a new guy who's been a better DC than him. It is a different system. So if you do run the football well, it does limit what Lynn could do as far as being exotic with the blitz packages, right?
Correct. Because if you send one in the wrong direction, Caleb Jackson can house call something on you very quickly.
Right. And to use an example of LSU playing a really difficult neutral site game, not necessarily in their backyard, that was the first big touchdown in the Miami game. Nicholas Brissett, Miami got caught in a call, and Nicholas Brissett had the wide open. And
it was a check at the line from Burrow.
Yes,
right? It was a check at the line from Burrow to get into the dive play.
Yes, exactly.
Here's what I'm trying to say, and I see we got some super chats in here. We'll get to them in just a moment.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you do it all game, but listen, they're trying to figure shit out defensively just like you are. And the thing about that is look, I actually don't think that their defensive line is as bad as some are trying to paint them out to be. I think Barry Alexander, Nate Shepard coming over from Vandy, Anthony Lucas, who was a part of that really good Texas A&M class. Carter, they got some NFL bodies up front. So do you along the offensive line. But I think that the reason that I'm saying that too is you got to work Garrett into this game too. Take some pressure off of him early. Because if you can keep that wide receiver unit from USC off the field, it's going to benefit you so many different ways. Now, you know, you don't want to do that, and I understand, like, you've had your thoughts on that.
No, it's
But
not,
when
yeah.
you look at this LSU offense versus this USC defense, where do you think – is it just the O-line where they have the advantage, or do they have advantages elsewhere too?
Yeah, because their name slips my mind because it just does. The safeties, if you do run the football, you got to bring somebody else in, especially if you do it out of 12. If you can run out of 12, it obviously adds an extra gap to the running game, and you really do have to drop a safety in. And that's where potentially not having Chris Hilton can really hurt you because
their safeties are Alakai Arnold and Kamari Ramsey.
Okay. If you have to bring one of those guys in, it just opens up more shots down the field, which obviously that's where Garrett is most comfortable throwing the moon balls, right? So if you can run the football, it's going to open up just so much for your offense. And also, Blake, that's kind of been the identity of this team. I know LSU's wide receiver room has had a really good spring, and over the last few weeks in particular, obviously, Blake, you've been at practice, but I've heard that CJ Daniels just kind of settled in, right?
On third down, he is his go-to right now, man. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. So Garrett and CJ have started to develop, a little bit. But even with the wide receiver room being as great as it is, the identity of this team and a big part and identity of this program, whether you look at the recruiting class where LSU has 3 top 100 interior linemen committed, 2 from outside of the state. Brian Kelly wants to be known as an offensive line program, and Will Campbell is the leader of this team. So if that is your identity going into next year, let them go out in week 1 and decide this game. Run the football. Trust them.
Now, I'm going to say I say that, but Carter, if they're running the ball at 4 or 5 yards a pop, that's a win for me. Because I really don't think I really do think people are underestimating the talent that USC has along their defensive line. Like, I really, really believe that. Like, they got some guys there. The only thing is, Carter, is that I do think that when you line up in 12 personnel, okay, you can start out athleting them. Then the bootlegs come behind it. Then the stuff with Mason Taylor and the flat starts coming behind it. Those are the small things that you got to complete on early and give Garrett Nussmeier the completions early. Here's another thing that I want to throw your way in your thoughts. This wide receiver room on the boundary versus USC's DBs. Like, I look at another Louisiana guy here, but Greedy Vance. Is going to be in there. And look, man, you have some very big-bodied wide receivers. He is not that physical. He's just not. And I think that you can exploit that. Is there anything with our wide receivers versus their DBs that stand out to you?
Yeah, I do like LSU's receivers going up against USC's corners. I do. And I think they will win that matchup throughout the evening, right? And once again, like you said, in the running game, you can really get numbers vertically if you can get that going. I like Kyron versus pretty much any DB in the country this year. I mean, I really do think, if you actually break down what he did last year and you look at what some NFL evaluators have said about him and CJ Daniels, you should like those two going up against basically anyone, right? One thing that's interesting, with Brian Kelly talking about Kyle Parker, this is a guy who spent a lot of last year blocking. And when he was out there, it was just run blocking.
And that's why he's going to play on Saturday.
And that's a memo to all young players. If you work your ass off blocking, they're going to want to play you a lot more. And there were times when he blocked in games last year, Blake, he got put on his rear end. And he just got better and better and better at it. So I'm really excited to see Kyle Parker get his chance because he will play some, this weekend. So if you can, I do like LSU's wide receivers as blockers too. And I do think LSU will put a little bit more emphasis on outside zone, which obviously increases the importance of outside blocking from your receivers. I think LSU will have, success running at a 5-tech and the B gaps and the C gaps and all of that, especially, with Caleb's speed. So I'm really excited to see that, especially if DJ Chester can be your center and Miles Frazier is healthy as a guard. You can really do some creative things in the run game, and hopefully LSU will be able to get that going.
One thing too, LSU's going to run some counter. Okay,
Yep.
they're going to run the ball. You know, they're going to get Will Campbell out in space. In reference to Grady, I see some people in the chat. Grady Vance did not lock up Kyron Lacey. Are you crazy?
No,
You better go back and watch it.
Kyron will cook.
Kyron will cook. And he cooked Caleb Downs last year, and he's well far better than Grady Vance. I think the biggest question, Carter, going into this before we get to some Brian Kelly comments to wrap it up here, what every LSU fan wants to know is going to be, how does this defense look against this USC offense? Let's look at the wide receivers of USC versus this DB room, a room that was very much tormented a year ago. I guess when you preview this game, how do you see it?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say, and this gets a little personal, and I don't like to get too personal in my analysis, but this LSU secondary is a little bit more together, okay? And what I would say about that is all you have to do is see what happened to the LSU secondary room last year. There were a lot of guys in there that didn't have the team first compared to themselves first, and I'll leave it at that. That helps, okay? It really does help. And and I understand, you could be a big Corey Raymond guy or not like Corey Raymond or not like, and relatively inexperienced Jake Olson. But I do feel, just speaking to people I trust, that this defense from top to bottom is just more together. Now, is this the most talented LSU defense? No, not even close. But at least they will play more together. Last year, there was a lot of individuals not playing as a team, and you would notice that pretty quickly, and that's how a lot of explosive plays would happen. I do think this team will be better as a unit, Blake, and that's going to be very important because USC, it's not a big thing, but they can run trick plays. They can definitely run a lot of reverses and things like that. You have to be versus the Lincoln Riley coach team. And the
got to be disciplined, man. That's how I led the show off tonight. You got to be disciplined versus him.
And one area where I think he will attack is the second level. I know there's so much focus on the third level with the DBs going up against their talented receivers. But Lincoln does a really good job, and Norvell did this last year as well, attacking that second intermediate level of your defense, right? And that's where USC really had a lot of success versus Louisville. And the reason why I think they're going to do that is because, Harold Perkins this is going to be the first full-time game since last year, obviously, but more so just getting back into being an off-ball linebacker. This will be his first full-time game alongside Greg Penn, and obviously Weeks is going to play a lot as well. How does LSU defend against the intermediate stuff? Because one thing USC does a really good job of is when you run a blitz, somehow, some way, they always have a really good call against that blitz. And one thing Miller Moss did a really good job of versus Louisville is backing up and hitting shallow drags for big gains. Basically,
what you struggled with last year.
Yeah, and it kind of like what Mississippi State did to you in 2020. Obviously, that's a nightmare memory. So you have to be ready for that. So the second level of that LSU defense will get really stretched. And honestly, that's what a lot of good play callers do. So Greg Penn, Harold Perkins, and Whit Weeks very well could decide this game for LSU. And I know we have focused so much. What about the defensive tackle room? What about the young corners? I think that second level very well could decide this.
I think Harold Perkins is going to have a great game.
I do too.
Here's my hot take. I think they gave him number 7 because of how good he's been this fall camp.
Yeah.
I think they wouldn't have given that to him, and they would have just said, yeah, we got a number 7. His name's Will Campbell.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to give Greg Penn the signs from the sideline, and the calm is going to be with Perk.
Right, because he'll be on the field more often.
He'll be on the field more often, and I think Blake Baker being in his ear. Look, a lot has been made of Blake Baker too here, Carter, and look, this is going to be a chess match. And Blake Baker's had a lot of success at Missouri. He's had a lot of success at a lot of places. Lincoln Riley is considered one of the best offensive minds in the country. I guess my question to you is, I'm not saying that Blake Baker's going to get cooked or out-coached or out-schemed. I'm not saying any of that. I don't believe any of that. But when you look at USC, Lincoln Riley versus Blake Baker, do you look at it from a holistic view? Like, man, this is going to be a hell of a test for Blake Baker going up against Lincoln here.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for your first one with Lincoln and time to prepare. I mean, we're talking about Yeah, as you said, it's not even close. It honestly is not close at all. Over the past decade, he is the best quarterback coach and quarterback developer in the country. I mean, it's not. There's no debating to the contrary. And he's just a really, really good play caller. Obviously, this will probably be you could say in theory, the least talented quarterback he's had in a while, but he's still really damn good. I mean, it's just Miller Moss is still.
You
really
know
good.
what? Can I tell you the analogy I gave today on Rufino and Joe show?
Let's hear it.
Because Joe said the same thing that you just said. And I said, and you know what my response to him was? Then explain a walk-on Baker Mayfield being a Heisman Trophy winner. Because when Baker Mayfield walked on at Oklahoma, nobody in their right mind thought he was going to be what he was going to be.
It wasn't even clear.
But you know who did see that in him?
Lincoln Riley. I mean, it wasn't even he went over there not with the starter's job. He bet on himself.
Yeah, but Lincoln accepted him in there, and he didn't pussyfoot around and get him in there either.
No.
Right? Like, I mean, it's not. Look, Blake is going to send the heat, and I think in all of this, I don't mind when a guy like Lincoln schemes something up on you. But here's what I would say too. Here is the number, and I'll talk about this at great length on Thursday. You got to tackle in space.
Yeah.
Like that is if there's anything that you've done the last 2 years, man, you got to tackle in space, because if you can't do that, you're going to get cooked. And screw the scheme stuff, like screw all this shit. You got to tackle in space because you're going to be in positions. So get guys down to the ground, make tackles, and get things happening. I think that's where the game has got to be won, is when you're in the right places, make the plays. Make the simple tackles and get the ball carrier down too.
And that's the weirdest thing, man. You really don't know how good of a tackling unit you have until you actually play, because you're just not – in practice, it's just aren't as physical as they once were. But I do think –
It really made me feel better when they went goal line, 1st and goal from the 1, and they stuffed Caleb Jackson 4 straight times.
I do think they'll be better tackling, because you'll never see a team miss 30 tackles in a game again. Well,
you say that.
Yeah, it will not happen again unless it's virtually impossible to tackle as badly as they did in the USC game.
All right,
or the Ole Miss game.
Let me ask you a couple of questions here. Is there anything that Brian Kelly said today that stood out to you? Mine was that he said that he wants to try to make USC's offense one-dimensional. But is there anything that he said today that you want, that just, how do I want to say this, that kind of perked your ears up?
Yeah, it was actually a younger reporter who asked about Jacoby and Guillory when he said you're going to see him make a lot of tackles. He's been more of a space eater, but if he could be a playmaker and actually make tackles, now tackling as a defensive tackle is very difficult to do, especially considering USC's offensive line should be good. I mean, I don't think they're as good as LSU's, but I think they are going to be good. They're definitely probably one of the 4 or 5 best you will play this year. So if Tank can be that good, and someone asks you about Tank and you go out of your way saying, well, he's been our best defensive lineman, our best defensive tackle, and he's going to go out there and make tackles. I thought that was very interesting. And hopefully that's the case. Tank's dad supports your channel. He supports mine as well. I would love to see it. Jacobian has been a guy who's been through all these defensive line coaches. Savion Jones has had better practices as well. I thought that was the most interesting thing, that he brought up the tackling aspect. So I'm really excited to see big number 90 next year.
What do you think he meant by trying to make them one-dimensional?
Yeah, I don't think Brian Kelly wants them throwing, as crazy as that sounds.
So you think they're going to be less aggressive and more passive?
No, I don't think that. I think they're fine if they go into this game saying, if Woody Marks beats us, we can live with it. And I think Woody Marks has been one of the more underrated running backs. I think they'll be okay with that, because they think their offense is going to be good enough to outscore USC. So that's about where I am with it, Blake. There wasn't really anything else that just, completely blew me away, other than this is kind of the same situation as the past couple of years, where Brian Kelly has played this team a lot more than LSU has. And I think that's also fascinating as we go into next year.
Cody McGee says Blake and Carter need to be on the FS1 and replace Skip Bayless. Can call it the Rudy Cruz show. Lincoln. He also says Lincoln Riley has been trying to get out of this LSU game ever since he became the head coach at USC. Is Lincoln scared to play an SEC team?
Yeah, I think there is a piece of that. I
think that this has more to do. Fox was trying to put pressure on USC to get out of the game so that they had their first game in the Big Ten on Fox.
I will also say this. I did like Brian Kelly putting out there about, moving the game and all of it. That whole ordeal was so fascinating to me. Like, play the damn game. I mean, why wouldn't Lincoln Riley be excited about playing this game? Oh, yeah, it's because last time he played LSU, he had 63 put up on him. And guess what? Garrett Nussmeier's putting up a 70 burger. He's putting up a 70 burger.
That, first off, that's not happening. Second off, okay, here's the thing that makes me nervous as a virgin sitting in church with a girl that has big titties is, yeah, that did happen to Lincoln. And I think there is a part of Lincoln that's a competitor. And I don't like it. Look, man, USC's been shit on all offseason.
They have. No, you're right.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I wish people were saying they were winning the football game.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is interesting. Opens at 6.
Goes down to 4.
Goes down.
I had a guy in Vegas. And a guy bet online tell me, you know why it's going down? The line's going down? Because people are worried about Nuss's turnovers. That's a whole nother thing. Nuss, here's a whole nother thing. We haven't even talked about Nussmeier. He has to protect the football. You cannot give Lincoln more possessions, man. You just cannot do it.
What's the guy that he's a big betting reporter on ESPN, and I think he said something like 87% of the money is on LSU or something like that, which is not what you want. It's not.
No, it's not.
Oh, crap.
You want to be 50-50.
Yeah. You don't. 87 is pretty ridiculous. I don't know if I truly believe that, but I did see that tweet. I was like, no, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Bill Conley had it 41-31 Tigers. Did you see that?
Yeah. His SP
and Bill's really good at his job.
Yeah, his SP Plus projections. I think he would also come on here and say, though, he is far more concerned about his week 1 projections because there is just so much.
Mm-hmm.
But one more thing about his projections is offensive line returning production is a big part of it. So LSU having so much of it, USC has a lot of it as well, but LSU having the near maximum is pretty ridiculous.
Look, and you got to get pressure on his ass too. All right, a couple more. We'll get you out here. Dr. John Sibley Butler says, Blake, how did the number experts miss so bad on FSU Georgia Tech? What are lessons for predicting college football? ESPN and FSU 70+ winning percentage. All college football today picked FSU. What's up, Carter? I think that live by the portal, die by the portal. I don't know how you felt about that game. I think that their defensive line was just not as good as people thought it was going to be, and they got pushed around, and they wanted it more. I came out last Wednesday, or last Sunday, I forget. When we did our Georgia Tech and FSU preview, I picked Georgia Tech plus 13.5.
Good.
Like oh heavens yes, because look, man, and this goes for LSU fans too. This is a good question because it can be related to LSU too. You got a shitload that you're replacing. Now, so is USC, but brother, you got a whole. So did FSU. And if you don't look, Carter, I swear to God, you better go out there and run that football. Y'all want to open this shit up? You better go out there and run that son, bitch. Because listen, you let Garrett make one bad decision, you got to give him easy throws. You got to get him into the game. Run that damn rock, baby.
Well, one more thing to your argument, because obviously I'm slightly on the other side of it, which is just do whatever you feel your offense does best. Throwing the ball has a lot more to do with timing, right? Now, running the football has a lot to do with timing as well. But the actual football being distributed from one player to the other is far more consistent, whether you have chemistry or you don't, right? Throwing the football, it's tough to get those game reps and that chemistry, right?
No doubt.
And you saw Georgia Tech being a far more run-based team and Florida State being a little bit more aerial, especially after losing Trey Benson. You saw the difference that made. And obviously, as you know, Blake, I've never been a DJU guy. You just haven't.
God, he's so bad, man.
He's not. I have a bunch of takes as to why I think he's bad. I don't.
Here's my take. Say if you agree or disagree. I don't think he knows what coverages he's seeing.
I also don't think you can be an elite quarterback if you have an overbearing father, like his dad, who always wants to talk about his method or whatever. I don't.
Arch Manning said, "What's up?"
Well, that's a little bit. It's a little bit different. It's a little like he's actually good at football, or at least I think he is. I honestly think, and I truly do mean this, that Florida State took in a lot of transfers that weren't really that good in my estimation, and we saw what happened. And one more thing about the Florida State game, and it was a really good super chat, Sibley, one of my really good buddies. It does show you how good of a team LSU played over the past couple of seasons, right?
Yeah.
Because the only reason Florida State was ranked number 10 was based on what they did last year. And a lot of people, thinking it was Norvell, and it was. Norvell is a really good coach.
Well, and their offensive coordinator was out. Alex Atkins was serving a 1-game suspension.
Yes. And, their special teams was good. That's a former LSU guy, John Papuchis. But the truth is as LSU fans, I know there's a lot of concern with this being a difficult season opener, as you said. But you did play two unfreaking believably talented Florida State teams over the last 2 years. Is USC also unfreaking believably talented? Yes, they're not as good in my mind as any of those Florida State teams over the last.
Are you as good?
No, but I tend to think, and this is just me, LSU is still very good. There are a lot of players that are returning. There's so much returning production. And college football has so much to do with who you play, more so than any other sport. I'm not saying USC is not good, but that Florida State team last year is probably the best non-Bama team to not make the playoff. They were really damn good. And we saw that play out last year. So going into this game, USC can go out there and definitely beat us. They're just not as good to me as last year's Florida State team. So I don't think LSU fans should be too nervous.
Oh, I'm nervous, buddy.
Yeah, I am too, in terms of actually going out there and winning the game. But I wouldn't be so nervous because, Blake, going into last year, I really felt that Florida State team was special. I really did. And I feel like USC's got some special pieces. I just don't think they're as good as Florida State's team is last year. So obviously there's so much different about LSU's team. We don't have Jane Daniels, Malik Neighbors, BTJ, Mason Smith, so on and so on. But I still think they're going to be a really good team. And I do think LSU will win the game this weekend.
Final score or your score prediction? You got one?
I don't have one yet, Blake.
Me either.
But for some reason, I feel this is one of these 31-28 kind of games.
I swear to God, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think that's about about where I am. So, obviously, I feel sort of kind of good about that. I know it's not worded the absolute smoothest. It was interesting that this game's total opened up at 66.5, and it's all the way down in the low 60s now. So, yeah, I hope it's around there. And if it is around there, that means LSU's defense has gotten better. It is crazy to think.
And that means you're running the football at a high clip.
Right. It is crazy to think if USC puts up 28-ish points, that's a W. But
oh, no. Mudbug De La Houssaye. If he gets the 3 interceptions, AJ Swan's coming in.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get to there, though. I think Nutt's going to have a good game.
Carter, the power, Bryant. Hopefully, we'll see you next Monday and an LSU win, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you in Vegas. Blake is going to make a last-second trip to Vegas. I'll see you there, man, at the slots. Let's go.
Not a chance. Bye, buddy. All right, that's Carter the Power Bryant. Before we get out of here, just want to mention LSU did get a recruit this weekend, Aiden Anding out of Ruston, another DB. Love it. Love him. I think his film is really good. I know a lot of people wanted Jonah Williams too, but I just don't think that Jonah, NIL can be a bitch. That's all I'm going to say. Until tomorrow, we'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one. Peace.